Tonight, Speaker under scrutiny calls for his resignation a day after kicking Poilievre out of the House. The political divide over the ejection.
Well, I think the Speaker should resign. He's a disgrace.
The Leader of the Opposition needs to stop acting as a child.
And the questions over question period.
Do you regret how things played out yesterday?
Arrests on American campuses over pro-Palestinian protests.
Free Palestine!
And a court ruling favors those demonstrating in Canada. Plus, new first-hand accounts of a deadly wrong-way crash.
He pulled a knife on an off-duty officer left in a vehicle.
Also, jockeying for top spot from Toronto to the Kentucky Derby.
I'm just ready for a win.
And a Major League father-son moment.
There's a base hit to right field for my boy.
A Canadian sportscaster and the call that hit home.
Unbelievable.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The Speaker of the House faced more questions about his political future today after yesterday's dramatic clash in the Commons. Both the Liberals and the Conservatives using the tense exchanges to bolster support. CTV's Michael Couture starts us off. And Mike, what a difference a day makes.
Omar, the ramped-up rhetoric on display yesterday was replaced with measured tones and serious debate.
Will he announce now that his experiment with legalizing hard drugs in BC is over? Yes or no?
24 hours after Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was kicked out of question period for this.
When will we put an end to this wacko policy by this wacko Prime Minister?
Parliament instead focused on policy, with questions about BC's opioid crisis.
By moving forward with British Columbia as they wanted to try a pilot project, that we are working with them to adjust in ways that make sense. We understand the urgency and we will act.
It capped off a day where the Conservatives called for the Speaker, Greg Fergus, to be removed because they say the Prime Minister wasn't reprimanded yesterday for name-calling.
The Leader opposite is showing us exactly what shameful, spineless leadership looks like.
Trudeau was asked to reframe the question without a personal attack, not withdraw the comment.
Never did have confidence in this Speaker. What's going to happen today? He's too liberal partisan.
CTV News caught up with Greg Fergus, but he refused to weigh in.
Can't respond. It might be unfair for the Speaker to comment on things that happen in the House.
Do you regret how things played out yesterday?
His office later said he has no intention of stepping down. Liberals blame the Conservative leader for tension in the House of Commons.
When Mr. Poilievre stands up, he's playing a character. He's trying to raise money.
But it would seem both parties are using it to score political points.
They've gone wacko.
Wacko, wacko.
The Liberals releasing an attack ad comparing Poilievre's choice of words to another leader, while the Conservatives seized on the word wacko in their own social media post. Now, it's unclear if the Conservatives will continue to call for the Speaker to step down, or if the respectful tone of question period will hold. Omar?
All right, Mike, thanks. America's top diplomat was in Israel today pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza.
There is a proposal on the table, and as we've said, no delays, no excuses. The time is now.
The U.S. Secretary of State tried to reassure families of hostages who had gathered outside his hotel.
Thank you, Blinken.
Thank you, Biden.
Antony Blinken then meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu for 2.5 hours. The Israeli Prime Minister is vowing an offensive in Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinian civilians are taking refuge. Blinken blamed Hamas for not taking what he called an extremely generous ceasefire offer, but insisted the U.S. is opposed to an operation in Rafah without a plan to protect Gazans. Tensions overseas are boiling over on university campuses across the United States. Violent clashes erupted at UCLA as counter-protesters stormed a pro-Palestinian encampment overnight. And in New York, hundreds of arrests after police stormed a building at Columbia University. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbin on what's next.
You're back!
In Wisconsin, police clashing with and arresting student protesters. Some ugly scenes as they tried to clear the encampment from the university grounds. This Palestinian professor says he was targeted too.
We were standing there. The police officers were charging too violently, I have to say.
It seems universities have had enough, cracking down on students protesting the war in Gaza that in some cases has gone beyond free speech. Overnight in Los Angeles, riot police broke up violence between rival groups at UCLA. Pro-Palestinian and Israeli supporters kicking, fighting, breaching the barricades that had kept them apart.
They're discriminating against Jewish students.
Jewish students feel intimidated, unsafe at their own schools. The rage across campuses inspired by New York's Columbia University. Last night, riot police cleared Hamilton Hall after protesters broke in, barricading themselves inside. A massive show of force, police arresting hundreds of people last night. Columbia's president said they had no choice. The break-in raised safety levels to an intolerable level. New York's mayor claims outside agitators are to blame for radicalizing students.
There were those who were never concerned about free speech. They were concerned about chaos. It was about external actors hijacking peaceful protests and influence students to escalate.
In New York, the encampment is gone, but it has left its mark of a movement students across America say isn't going away.
And neither, it seems, are the police stationed at many campuses to make sure the class of 2024 graduates safely and on time. Omar?
All right, Joy, thanks. And demonstrations also growing at campuses in Canada tonight. At Montreal's McGill, pro-Palestinian protesters celebrated a legal victory, even as the university renewed calls for them to leave. Here's CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin.
Tents popped up at Ottawa U and Western as protesters continue to ignore universities' warnings of serious consequences.
Oh my God!
This as news a Quebec court denied an injunction spread fast across McGill campus.
We just heard that the injunction was denied!
Pro-Palestinian protesters on McGill grounds since Saturday say the ruling reaffirms this is a peaceful protest.
We're very happy that it's been rejected, and I think it shows that we're standing on the right side of history, the side of justice, the side of equality.
Two students argued in court protesters created a hostile and dangerous environment and asked they be kept 100 meters away from all McGill buildings. But the judge found little evidence an emergency injunction was necessary, adding protesters should review and avoid words that could be perceived, rightly or wrongly, to be calls to violence or be anti-Semitic.
The takeout is you can't go around using words that are violent, using words that are anti-Semitic, inappropriate, called out by the court, and we are pleased that this is what has come from this hearing.
But McGill wants the encampment off its private property, and it announced today it would hold a forum with members of its community to discuss protesters' demands if they left immediately. Protesters say they're not pulling up camp, and there's no evidence of a looming police crackdown. But counter-protesters say they will be on McGill grounds tomorrow. Geneviève Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
A Vancouver woman who praised Hamas's deadly attack on Israel at a rally last week was arrested today.
And we say today, long live October 7th!
But police say they have now released the woman pending further investigation to determine whether comments made during the protest violated hate crime laws. And the hunt for Canada's most wanted fugitive has ended. Toronto's Michael Beebe was arrested yesterday evening in Charlottetown following a tip. Just last week, police announced a $100,000 reward for information leading to his capture. The 35-year-old had been on the run since last summer after he allegedly shot and killed 29-year-old Shamar Powell Flowers last July.
We're just thankful that this family now has closure.
Arrangements are being made to get Beebe to Toronto to face charges. Dramatic new audio from a fatal highway police chase near Toronto is revealing there was a major warning.
Someone's going to get hurt.
We're calling him out.
It all started with reports of a robbery attempt at a liquor store on Monday night.
He pulled a knife on an off-duty officer, left in a vehicle.
That triggered a police chase. The suspect speeding from residential streets onto the highway in the wrong direction.
Durham's in pursuit. The wrong way is going westbound and eastbound lanes.
The pursuit ended in a 6-vehicle collision that left a couple and their infant grandchild dead. The suspect was also killed. The province's Special Investigations Unit is now looking into the events. There are questions about whether police should have continued the chase, despite having identified the suspect's vehicle and its license plate. A team of more than a dozen police and 2 dogs have begun the gruesome task of sifting through a Saskatoon landfill for any new information in the case of a woman who went missing more than 3 years ago. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford.
A long and grueling search for Paul Trotché's daughter led him here, the Saskatoon landfill.
This is a place that nobody wants to be.
22-year-old Mackenzie Trotché was last seen December 2020. In the months following, the Trotchés launched a poster campaign offering a reward for the return of their daughter.
This is a long, trying, and tiring journey that is not yet finished.
3 years later, a new lead, taking the search to the landfill. Investigators set aside 33 days to sift through garbage.
It will be meticulous and it will be draining on the officers.
A calculated effort using GPS tracking on garbage trucks to determine the specific search area with no guarantee of success.
Landfill searches themselves can be quite complicated.
Forensic anthropologist Emily Holland helped draft a feasibility study into a Manitoba landfill search that would look for the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. That study suggesting a conveyor belt method to sort through the mounds of material.
We certainly cannot draw direct parallels between one landfill search and another.
Government funding has been dedicated to the Manitoba search, but a start date hasn't been confirmed. Officials say they will be closely watching Saskatoon to see how these efforts play out. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
After a dozen years and billions of dollars in cost overruns, the expanded Trans Mountain Pipeline finally opened today. The ability to move more oil from Alberta to BC's coast is a victory for producers, but a setback for some environmental activists. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson explains.
The West Coast destination for Alberta oil is quiet on a landmark day more than a decade in the making.
It fundamentally increases, in a very, very big way, the amount of pipeline capacity leaving Western Canada.
The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion nearly triples the flow of crude oil to the Pacific and lucrative Asian markets.
Instead of it all going to the U.S., where 99% of our crude goes, and we sell it at a discounted rate.
Canada is the world's 4th biggest oil producer, but increased export capacity has come at a steep price. The project was first proposed by Kinder Morgan in 2012, but it faced fierce opposition, delays, and soaring costs. The Canadian government bought it in 2018 to ensure it got built. The final price tag? A whopping $34 billion.
Infuriating that we've, spent almost $1,000 per Canadian building a pipeline that is only going to fuel the climate crisis and that violates Indigenous rights.
In 2020, a group of BC First Nations took the fight all the way to the Supreme Court, but were ultimately unsuccessful. This day is a difficult one.
It puts a lump in my throat. It's hard to know that all that work that my nation did, that I did, and the people of Vancouver still didn't arise to protecting our lands and waters.
The Trudeau government now plans to sell at least part of Trans Mountain, likely at a significant loss. The timeline unclear.
Given the complexity and cost, one energy company CEO has said he wouldn't be surprised if the Trans Mountain expansion is the last pipeline ever built in Canada. The first tanker is expected here at the West Coast Terminal, where it'll be loaded with Alberta oil from the new line by the middle of this month. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Burnaby.
Frustrated shoppers fed up with rising food prices kicked off what they say will be a month-long boycott of a grocery store giant on the same day the chain reported an increase in profits. CTV's Heather Wright on the reaction.
Business is good at Canada's largest grocer, which may be bad for customer relations, as Loblaws grapples with the start of a month-long boycott.
looking for change.
Roe and Caroline Schwim are, or were, Loblaws customers. But when they saw a group online calling for a boycott, they decided to join.
I think the price fixing and the canoodling that happens between shops here is really disgusting.
Over the last several years, all grocers, including Sobeys, Metro, and Walmart, have faced intense scrutiny over food inflation. But much of the anger has been directed at Loblaws, including this latest boycott.
Which is kind of silly, because it's not Loblaws' fault that prices are going up.
Last quarter, Loblaw, which owns No Frills, Real Canadian Superstore, and Shoppers Drug Mart, saw its profit increase nearly 10%, with net earnings of $459 million. The company says it is doing all it can to keep prices low, even walking back unpopular decisions like getting rid of the 50% off discounts on food that is near expiry.
I think there is some indication that they are listening to the criticism, but at the same time, then you have these earning reports that come out that make it sound a little bit like they're saying one thing on one hand and doing another.
While food prices are still rising, they aren't going up quite as quickly as they once were. According to Statistics Canada, food inflation for the month of March was at 1.9% compared to the year before. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
The first phase of the Canadian Dental Care Plan rolled out today.
At 3 p.m., 3,500, actually more than 3,500 Canadians had received services through this plan in its first day.
Eligible seniors 70 and older can now receive coverage, and eligible seniors 65 to 69 can now also apply for the program online. Ottawa says nearly 2 million Canadians are enrolled in the program, but some could be stuck waiting for care, as only about 6,500 oral health care providers have signed up for the program, far fewer than the total number nationally.
I think you'll see more dentists come online when they actually address the content of that contract to make it more akin to conventional insurance.
Coming up, saddling up for success.
I'm feeling like I represent Canada and represent Japan, so.
A jockey makes big strides and is counting down to a big race, plus a major league victory lap for a special father-son moment. A jockey from Japan who now calls Canada home is now just days away from trying to gallop to victory at one of the most prestigious horse races in the world. Here's CTV's Adrian Gabriel.
These stables are home to a cast of gentle giants. And on the track at Woodbine, you'll find a jockey whose smile you can spot a mile down the stretch.
And he's pulling away.
When paired together, they become a sight of sheer speed and agility.
Kazushi Kimura picks up another success.
6 years ago, when he was just 18 years old, Kazushi Kimura left his home and family behind in Hokkaido, Japan, chasing his dream all the way to Toronto's Woodbine racetrack.
New country, new language, new different culture.
And raced away.
Moving quickly is what Kimura does best, first making Toronto his second home, learning English, then conquering the track. Recently winning his third straight award as Canada's outstanding jockey at just 24 years old, with this weekend's Kentucky Derby up next.
It takes, sometimes 10, 15, 20 years to accomplish basically what he's gone through in about 6 or 7.
Kimura's first ever win here on Canadian soil came on a horse with a 70-1 chance at winning. And when he steps into the irons of the Kentucky Derby, he'll once again, almost fittingly, be riding a long shot. You're comfortable in that position?
Yeah, no pressure.
Last year, he got a late call-up to race in the Derby. This season, Kimura received a formal invite to the big race.
Right now, I'm feeling like I represent Canada and represent Japan.
You're rounding the final corner at the Kentucky Derby. You're on the home stretch. Bring us on your horse.
I could hear so much noise from crowd. So I love to be a giant killing, so yeah, let's see what's gonna happen.
And according to those who know Kimura best, you'd be wise not to bet against him. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, the buzz in the air that delayed the ball game.
Oh, wow, that's a lot of bees.
And the hero who beelined it to save the day. NHL coach John Cooper opened his end-of-season news conference expressing regret for Monday's comments widely condemned as misogynistic.
I made an appropriate analogy about goalies and skirts. And, you know, it's one of those moments, if you could just reach back and grab the words back, I would have. I got to go and explain myself to my girls. And anyway, it was... I sincerely apologize.
Last night's Major League Baseball game in Arizona was delayed by almost 2 hours.
A lot of bees on top of the backstop. And at first it was like, oh, wow, that's a lot of bees. That's crazy. But now it's like this game's probably not going to start on time.
A swarm of bees descended on home plate. A local beekeeper was called in to save the day. He's also a baseball fan, so he'll never forget what happened next. Yes, that's the beekeeper throwing out the ceremonial first pitch. Amazing. After the break.
There's a base hit to right field for my boy, Tyler Black.
An unforgettable Major League moment. A cherished call by Canadian sportscaster during his son's Major League Baseball debut played out on live TV and has become a huge hit. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on a family's field of dreams.
23-year-old Canadian baseball player Tyler Black
And he can't catch it.
made a splash in his first ever Major League game for Milwaukee with his family watching. When the Brewers play-by-play crew spotted his father, former CTV and TSN broadcaster Rod Black, they put him on TV, back behind the mic for his son's at-bat.
There's a base hit to right field for my boy, Tyler Black. There you go. Oh, there you go.
A heartwarming occasion for the entire family.
I don't even know how to describe that feeling. I've called so many hits and goals and moments.
Post-game, Tyler saw his dad's reaction.
It was great. I think they're down here now, but unbelievable.
TSN analyst Steve Phillips called it one of the best baseball moments he has seen in a long time.
The timing of it could not have been better. Right in the middle of the interview, he comes up, he gets the base hit, and Dad breaks out into the broadcast voice.
Rod Black was in Cancun, Mexico on a family vacation when he found out his son Tyler had been called up to the Milwaukee Brewers. The family made it to the ballpark just in time. Tyler's mother, Nancy, was celebrating her birthday.
And then he gave my wife the ball from the double, so that was pretty special.
Tyler had 2 hits in his debut, plus another hit in his second game with the Brewers on Wednesday. Phillips was not surprised.
This is a guy that can swing the bat. He can really hit.
Tyler and the entire Black family hope there are many more hits in the future, creating memorable moments like this. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News.
Undoubtedly an immense feeling of pride for Rod and Nancy. And that's a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.